Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com, promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Well, folks, it appears that this is finally over. I'm talking about the shutdown, of course. In a late-night vote, the U.S. House approved the bill that ended the government shutdown. Now it's getting the thousands of workers back to their jobs, and getting things back to normal is the task at hand. We have the details of what happened to get this done in today's show. The assassination of Charlie Kirk has ignited a groundswell of support for the organization he founded as a teenager. Turning Point USA has seen record numbers of requests for new chapters. But in some cases, students are finding that it's not as simple as just deciding to start a chapter on your campus. There's a process that most schools have, and it's not going too well in some areas. The latest example is in a school-supported Turning Point USA chapter that was denied by the university's Associated Student Body Board of Directors. This was the third attempt by students at Point Loma Nazarene University in San Diego. We have those details for you. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent revealed that the Trump administration has discussed restricting the president's proposed $2,000 tariff dividend to families making less than six figures. We have the latest on this story as well from last week when the president promised a tariff dividend.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Well, late last night, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a bipartisan funding bill by a vote of 222 to 209. Sending it straight to President Donald Trump's desk, where he's expected to sign it and bring this painful chapter to a close. This bill passed first in the Senate earlier this week, reopens the federal government, restores paychecks to hundreds of thousands of workers, restarts key programs like SNAP food assistance, and funds essential operations from the military to veterans care through early next year. Now, it's hard to overstate just how historic this has been. 43 days. The longest shutdown in the U.S. history. For 6 weeks, airports were crippled by staffing shortages. Families missed paychecks, and millions of Americans wondered when Congress would finally get its act together. Well, last night, it finally did. House Speaker Mike Johnson, who's led the charge since taking the gavel earlier this year, called it the end of a long national nightmare. Shutting down the government never produces anything, Johnson said. It never has. And he's right. This shutdown, which began as a standoff over health care policy, cost the country billions in lost productivity and untold frustration, and we'll see some of the issues that were created because of this in the weeks and months to come. Here's how it unfolded. The House came back into session after nearly 6 weeks in recess. Members were given 36 hours to return to Washington after the Senate broke the logjam with a 60-40 vote on Monday night, thanks to 8 Senate Democrats, of course, who crossed the aisle to join Republicans. On yesterday, the House followed suit with 6 Democrats joining Republicans to pass the bill. The final tally, 222 to 209. The vote ends the shutdown and funds the federal government through January 30th, 2026. The bill also includes full-year funding through next September for veterans programs, military construction, legislative branch operations, and food assistance. Now, let's just be honest here. Make no mistake. This was a political defeat for Chuck Schumer and his Democrats. Their leadership, especially Hakeem Jeffries in the House, and yes, Chuck Schumer in the Senate, went all in trying to tie this funding to fight for the extension of Obamacare tax subsidies that expire later this year. They insisted no deal would happen without it. And yet, after 43 days of posturing, the government reopens with no health care concessions whatsoever. So what did they gain from that? What did they, the pain that was caused by that shutdown, and again, it's far-reaching, and just because the government's opening back up doesn't mean that there's not going to be some issues that we're going to have to deal with. That's why House Democrats were fuming yesterday. Representative Rosa DeLauro from Connecticut said on the House floor, "I rise in opposition to this bill that does nothing, not one thing, to address the Republican health care crisis amid a cost of living crisis." Translation, she's saying Democrats dug in, shut the government down, and came away empty-handed. That's exactly what they did. Meanwhile, Republicans, led by Speaker Johnson and Appropriations Chair Tom Cole, stayed remarkably unified. Cole summed it up perfectly. Here's a quote. "This legislation reopens the government, restores critical services, and puts an end to the needless hardship Democrats have inflicted on the country." And he's right. From air traffic delays to unpaid federal workers, this shutdown hurt ordinary Americans, not the politicians. Even some Democrats are now admitting they went too far. Senator Angus King of Maine, who caucuses with the Democrats, said bluntly standing up to Trump did not work. President Trump himself telling Fox News on the Ingram angle, he thought he could break the Republicans, and the Republicans broke him. That's the story here. The GOP did not blink. We're playing a game of chicken with Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries. Republicans did not blink. They lost. Now, what exactly does this bill do? Again, it provides immediate funding to reopen shuttered agencies and ensures back pay for federal workers who've gone without income for over a month. It fully restores veterans' health care programs, reactivates SNAP benefits, and funds air traffic control operations, which have become dangerously strained. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy had warned earlier that the shutdown could cause a 20% reduction in U.S. airspace due to staffing shortages. We saw a lot of flights canceled. The airlines will lose that money. They can never replace that. So getting this bill across the finish line wasn't just about politics. It was about public safety. It was about economic stability and getting the country back on its feet. But don't expect the debate over health care subsidies to just disappear, though. Senate Majority Leader John Thune has promised Democrats a vote in December on extending the Affordable Care Act's tax credits, a concession that helped get the Senate deal done. Now, yes, the GOP leadership promised a vote. They didn't promise it would pass. I've gotten some text messages, some emails from some of you saying, what in the world is wrong with John Thune? Why is he promising a vote on Obamacare? Well, that's all he's promised is a vote. He's counting on the opposition. He's counting on every single GOP vote to vote against it. Now, Speaker Johnson has not committed to bringing this measure up in the House. Democrats, led by Hakeem Jeffries in the House, vowed to keep pressing the issue. Hakeem Jeffries was quoted this week saying, "We're going to give Republicans another opportunity to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits by introducing an amendment that will extend these tax credits for 3 years." He pulled that stunt yesterday. Those subsidies expanded during the Biden years are set to expire at the end of this year, end of December. So the next funding battle could circle right back to the same issue. There's a bigger takeaway here, though. This shutdown was supposed to be a test of Republican unity under President Trump's leadership. Democrats and the media expected the GOP to fracture. It did not happen. Instead, the opposite happened. The administration stay focused, refusing to negotiate under duress, while congressional Republicans kept the message clear. Fund the government first, debate policy second. And that's what they ended up having to do. And now, with the government reopening on their terms, that discipline has paid off. President Trump's steady hand and Speaker Johnson's leadership have strengthened the Republican position heading into the 2026 budget fight. So here's the bottom line. After 43 days of gridlock, the American people finally get their government back, and the Democrats get a hard political lesson. The shutdown they engineered to score points on health care became a self-inflicted wound that's going to hurt badly. The Republicans held firm, passed a clean funding bill, and reopened the country without caving to partisan demands. President Trump said it best. He thought he could break the Republicans, and the Republicans broke him. And that's where we stand today. Hey, it's Joey Hudson. The holidays are here, and while most people are adding pounds, what if you could start 2026 feeling lighter and more confident? I lost over 30 pounds with PhD weight loss, and it completely changed how I think about food. My coach showed me what to eat, how to handle the holidays, and how to enjoy meals without guilt. At PhD, their metabolic reset system helps your body burn fat first so you lose weight naturally and you keep it off. No starvation diets, no crazy workouts, no drugs, just a smarter science-based system that actually works. And right now, for November only, PhD Weight Loss is waiving your consultation fee, adding 2 free weeks to your program, and even covering the cost of your food. Plus, just for booking, you'll get their free guide, 5 steps to reset the scale. Mention code 2026START to claim these bonuses. Get started today. Call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900. And you can find them online at myphdweightloss.com. PhD Weight Loss. Feel amazing during the holidays and beyond. You know, one of the things that President Trump has always done differently than any other president, and that is to think big. He's not afraid to throw ideas out there, and some stick, some don't. But he gets some very good ideas at times, and he gets good feedback from the American people. Well, this week, that big thinking took another step forward. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent revealed on Fox and Friends yesterday that the administration is discussing how to target President Trump's proposed $2,000 tariff dividend, potentially limiting it to families making under $100,000 a year, according to the Treasury Secretary. Now, the details are still being worked out, but one thing is clear. This plan is aimed straight at the middle class, the hardworking families who've borne the brunt of inflation, higher interest rates, and Biden-era economic chaos. That's who this is going to benefit. So let's unpack what this tariff dividend actually means. President Trump floated the idea last week after that intense Supreme Court hearing over his use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. That same law that's allowed him to impose reciprocal tariffs on foreign imports is being questioned, of course. The president said a dividend of at least $2,000 a person, not including high-income people, will be paid to everyone. Now, that's what I'm saying. He tosses these ideas out there, and I'm sure that some of his staff are thinking, please, please, just sit down and be quiet. Because he tosses these ideas out before, I think in some cases, he even thinks them through. In other words, in this case, if the U.S. is bringing in revenue from tariffs, the American people ought to see the benefit, not just Washington bureaucrats or special interests. That's the point the president was making. Treasury Secretary Bessent clarified this week that one option under discussion is restricting those dividend payments to families earning under 6 figures. Again, $100,000. Roughly the same income threshold used for the COVID-era stimulus checks. Bessent told Fox and Friends there are a lot of options here. Those would be for families making less than $100,000, and when pressed on whether that limit was final, he said it's in discussion. So no comments yet, no commitments yet. The administration is fine-tuning this, is the translation to this. But the focus is crystal clear. Main Street, not Wall Street. That's what President Trump, those are the people he's trying to help. So there's a few ways that this could play out. First, as Bessent explained on ABC this week, the, quote, dividend might not be a physical check like we saw during COVID. It could take other forms, tax reductions, payroll relief, or expanded deductions tied to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and the massive tax and growth package that President Trump signed earlier this year. That law already included Trump accounts, automatic $1,000 deposits for every child born between 2025 and 2028, designed to give the next generation a financial head start. So this tariff dividend could be layered right on top of that, we're told, adding another shot of relief for working families without exploding the federal budget. Bessent summed it up this way. What we did with the tax bill is financing the president's no tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security refunds. The big refunds you're going to see are a result of that. Now let's talk about dollars and cents. If the full $2,000 dividend were paid to every adult in America, every legal adult, analysts say it could cost roughly $464 billion, similar to one of the COVID-era stimulus rounds. But if it's limited to families under 100,000, the price tag drops to around $300 billion. You're going to shave off $164 billion. That's a lot of money. There's still a hefty sum. I mean, $300 billion is a hefty sum. But it's important to remember that these payments would be financed not through debt, but through tariff revenue. Thus, the reason it's being called a tariff dividend. The government collected about $90 billion in IEEPA tariffs and nearly $196 billion total in all import duties in fiscal year 2025. That number could rise dramatically if President Trump expands his tariff policies in 2026, especially against countries like China that continue to manipulate trade. The idea is very simple. American companies have paid the price for decades of bad trade deals. Now, under Trump's policy, foreign exporters pay that bill. It's just that simple. And American families can potentially reap the reward. Of course, not everybody's on board, as you can imagine. Some fiscal hawks in Congress are already grumbling about the cost. Senator Bernie Moreno of Ohio said bluntly, it'll never pass. We have a $36 trillion debt. That's a fair concern. But remember, these aren't unfunded giveaways. They're returns on revenue the government is already collecting. Think of it like a shareholder dividend. And who are the shareholders of this country? You and I, the American people. That's who the shareholders are. And frankly, if Washington can find billions for foreign aid and bloated agencies, it can find a way to return a fraction of our tariff income to working families trying to afford groceries, rent, and their gas. Now, the biggest hurdle may not be Congress. Could be the U.S. Supreme Court. If the court rules against Trump's use of the IEEPA tariffs, that's a mouthful, IEEPA. The tariffs, the administration could lose the legal authority to collect or distribute those funds. Or in a worst case scenario, even have to refund importers, which would be a disaster. That's why this case is so important. The Trump team argues the president has full constitutional authority to impose tariffs that protect American industries and jobs. Bessent hinted that the administration is confident the justices will side with them. We'll see. Let's hope that the Supreme Court backs the president. Good news as we, of course, celebrated the vote to reopen the government last night. Prior to that happening, though, the Transportation Department had already announced that it was freezing its phased-in flight cuts for 40 busy airports nationwide, saying it will maintain a 6% reduction at those locations instead of the 10% that they were working towards because they were anticipating at the time the bill passing, which it did. DOT did not say when these restrictions will completely end. The department had imposed the reductions late last week, citing fatigue among unpaid air traffic controllers, and then ramped them up Tuesday, provoking widespread cancellations that heightened the pressure for lawmakers to resolve the government shutdown. DOT cited a rapid decline in controller call-outs as the reason for the latest decision, which it announced late yesterday afternoon. On the text line, Phil says a majority of mortgages are not held for the whole term. Used to be the average mortgage was held 7 to 10 years. I don't know what that number is today. People move, trade up, trade down, etc. Yeah, I understand that, Phil, and I've had a number of you email me and text me that same observation. You buy a house, 7 years, 10 years in, whatever, you decide to move up. So you sell it and you get a new mortgage and you're starting over. This is in response, I know, to me talking about the 50-year mortgage. I've had a number of you text me. For example, another texter says, Joey, a much better move than a 50-year mortgage would be to make lenders allow mortgages to be assumable by qualified buyers. Some mortgages used to be assumable. The mortgage lenders won't like it, but to heck with that, they're still making money, and this helps solve the current crisis. I'm not quite sure what forcing banks to make mortgages assumable, I'm not sure why that would impact this. I don't know enough about that, I guess. But I did say in the show on Wednesday, I think it was, that I didn't think it was a great idea for a 50-year mortgage. It's kind of like some of the loan sharks that you see at some of these used car lots. Buy here, pay here. It's like you never get the car paid off. It's like your credit card bills on those high-interest credit cards. It just doubles the cost of the house that you're buying if you put another 20 years on that mortgage. But again, there are people a lot smarter than me who are working on this. We'll see. You've heard me. You've heard us saying, "I'll give you a penny for your thoughts." Not going to be able to say that much longer. Yesterday marked a milestone. For the first time in 232 years, the U.S. Mint officially stopped producing the penny. That little copper coin that's been jingling in your pocket all these years since the days of George Washington. Think about that. Exactly noon yesterday in Philadelphia, the Mint struck its final 1 cent piece, closing a chapter that began all the way back in 1792 with the original Coinage Act passed by Congress. And as the last penny rolled off the press, U.S. Treasurer Brandon Beach summed it up with a line you won't hear often in Washington. God bless America, and we're going to save the taxpayers $56 million. So $56 million annually will be saved by not producing the penny. The penny's been with us from the founding of this nation. From Benjamin Franklin's "A penny saved is a penny earned" to the countless jars and coffee cans filled with change in kitchens all across America. Do you have one? Do you have a jar somewhere loaded with a lot of coins, primarily pennies? It'd be interesting if we had some way of finding out how many, I'm going to say probably billions of dollars, are in people's closets in a jar by way of pennies. It's become an American icon, especially after 1909 when the face of Abraham Lincoln replaced the image of Lady Liberty on the coin's front. For more than a century, Honest Abe's profile has been a familiar sight in every checkout line, every tip jar, every kid's piggy bank. But that's coming to an end. For the first time since the Washington administration, the presses have stopped. And behind that decision is a hard truth about economics, efficiency, and common sense. As quaint as the penny might be, the numbers simply don't add up anymore. Now listen to this. The U.S. Mint estimates that each penny cost 3.69 cents to make, nearly 4 times its face value. That means every penny struck in Philadelphia or Denver actually loses money. And that's not new. For 19 straight years, both pennies and nickels have cost more to produce than they're worth. In 2024 alone, it cost 14 cents to make a nickel, nearly 6 cents to make a dime, and over 15 cents to make a quarter. Even the half dollar cost 34 cents to mint. You can see why President Trump finally said enough is enough. Back in February, President Trump announced that he was ordering the Treasury Department to end production of the penny, calling it a prime example of government waste, and he's right. But I have to admit, it's going to be a little unusual not to have pennies. The president posted on Truth Social, for far too long, the United States has minted pennies which literally cost us more than 2 cents. This is so wasteful. I have instructed my Secretary of the U.S. Treasury to stop producing new pennies. It was vintage Trump, a businessman's move, not a bureaucrat, not an elected official. He looked at the map, he looked at the waste and said, why are we still doing this? And he brought it to our attention. I'm not sure I ever even understood that before. And it's hard to argue with the logic, isn't it? The Mint estimates that halting penny production will save taxpayers $56 million a year. When you factor in labor, transportation, medical costs, the true savings could be even higher. Still, there's something bittersweet, and you have to admit this, about saying goodbye to the penny. It's been part of our national fabric for generations. The coin we toss into fountains for good luck. The one you slip into a child's hand during a Sunday school offering. Or the one that sits heads up on the sidewalk waiting for someone to call it lucky. The lucky penny. In a sense, the penny was never about money. It was about memory. It reminded us of thrift, humility, and the idea that even the smallest contribution mattered. Abraham Lincoln's image on that tiny coin represented that belief that greatness could come from humble beginnings. And yet, the world has changed, and it's time for us to move on. Today, over 80% of all transactions are electronic. Fewer people carry cash, and the average American couldn't tell you the last time they used a coin in a vending machine, certainly not a penny. The penny simply couldn't keep up with a digital economy. So, what does this really mean practically? There are estimated 114 billion pennies still in circulation, worth about $1.14 billion. Those coins remain legal tender, meaning you can still use them at stores, banks, or for those rolls of coins sitting on your kitchen drawer. The Mint will also continue producing limited collector editions, but mass minting for circulation has ended as of yesterday. So yes, the penny's still good money. You can still use it. You can still buy stuff with it. But its days of being made by the billions are over. This isn't just about saving a few $1 million. It's about restoring common sense to government spending, according to President Trump. As the President's Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, and Treasurer Beach made clear, this decision is part of a broader effort to eliminate waste and streamline operations. It's the same mindset behind President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, cutting bureaucracy, ending redundant programs, and demanding results. That's what you have to do differently if you're going to change the way government works. When a coin costs more to make than it's worth, it's not patriotic to keep making it. It's just simply irresponsible, isn't it? And President Trump's willingness to take on even a symbolic issue like this shows that fiscal discipline and accountability matter again in the White House and in Washington. Predictably, of course, not everyone's cheering. Some nostalgic critics online are mourning the end of America's little copper friend. Others fear prices will round up without pennies in circulation, further making prices be higher. Those studies from other countries that ditched their smallest coins show rounding tends to even out over a period of time. We'll see. I don't know. But there's also a strong current of support, especially from taxpayers who are tired of government waste and inefficiency. As one commentator posted on X, we spent billions minting something nobody uses. Trump just saved us the price of common sense. And they're right. I mean, it's all about common sense. Hard to argue with it. So today, as that final penny cools in the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia, it's worth pausing for a little reflection. The first 1 cent piece rolled off the presses in 1793, a symbol of a young nation finding its footing. Now, 232 years later, the last one carries the image of the man who preserved that union through its darkest hour. It's fitting, really, isn't it, that the final penny minted bears Abe Lincoln's face. A reminder that greatness, again, doesn't come from the size of your wallet or your denomination. It comes from your conviction. And maybe in that sense, will always have a little piece of the penny with us, because what made it so special wasn't the metal, more so than it was just simply the meaning. Are you going to miss the penny? Is it a little nostalgia there for you as well? Go through your closet, count your pennies, and let me know how much you got. I dare say, I mean, I've got one of those big, like, water cooler buckets full, primarily of pennies. Text me, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. Hey, quick reminder that I'm going to be in Greenwood tomorrow on Friday. It's a big milestone for one of the upstate's most respected law firms, McCravey, Newland, Sturkey, and Clardy, and my buddy John McCravey. You hear me talking with Representative John McCravey quite a bit. He's just a trooper. He is a defender of life in the state legislature. And his law firm is celebrating 30 years of serving clients. And boy, I'm going to be over there in Greenwood helping him celebrate. And I hope you'll come by and join us. This is between 11:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. at their office. And by the way, Fat Daddy's food truck will be on the site. And you've heard me talk about Fat Daddy's as well. Talk about some great barbecue, some good food. They fed hundreds of veterans a few weeks ago when we had the Veterans Appreciation Dinner in Greenwood. And so Fat Daddy's food truck will be there. That's worth the drive over to Greenwood right there alone. And it's all free. So the event's open to the public. Grab a bite, meet the team, help them celebrate 3 decades of helping folks right here at home. Come run by, meet Representative John McCravey, meet John Newland, Jason Sturkey, Timothy Clardy, and again, yours truly. I'll be there to have some fun and to eat some good Fat Daddy's food, and of course say hello to you as well. They're easy to find. Just search for or just look for Applebee's and Zaxby's on the bypass in Greenwood, and their law firms right between those two. So hope to see you between 11:30 and 2 tomorrow in Greenwood. This story comes out of San Diego, California, where a group of Christian college students say that their voices and their values have been silenced. At Point Loma Nazarene University, students have now been denied not once, not twice, but 3 times in their effort to start a campus chapter of Turning Point USA, the conservative student organization founded by the late Charlie Kirk. The rejection was announced by the university's president, Carrie Fulcher, who emailed students last week saying the proposal had failed to pass the Associated Student Body's vote. And the reason? According to that letter, Turning Point's so-called professor watch list and its affiliation with TPUSA Faith, an initiative designed to unite Christians against what it calls wokeism. So they're just admitting that the things that TPUSA stand for are not welcome on their campus. Think about that. They're afraid of the professor watch list that TPUSA keeps on its website. If a professor lands on that list, they shouldn't be teaching at your university anyway. For the students behind the proposed chapter, the decision hit kind of hard. Luke Cole, a third-year student and the chapter's elected secretary, told Fox News, "I felt silence when I got that email. I felt like I couldn't speak anymore. Ginger Frice, a first-year student and the chapter's president, said she felt called to bring a voice for truth and faith to her campus after Charlie Kirk's assassination earlier this year. Again, they've seen a huge interest in new chapters all across the country. This young lady said, I watched students and faculty who identified as Christian celebrate human death on campus, and I was deeply troubled by that. For me, this was about creating space for truth. Brooklyn Stratton, the group's vice president, said she and other conservatives on campus have felt targeted since Kirk's death. She said college is our formative years. Not giving people the opportunity to explore which side of politics they're on doesn't align with free speech at all. Well, you got that right. But it sounds to me like that this administration at this school is just concerned that they're going to hold their professors accountable. These students weren't asking for funding for this. They weren't asking to push hate or division. They just wanted a seat at the table to discuss conservative ideas and faith in an environment that claims to value both. So what's the university's justification? President Fulcher's email claimed the club's application used language similar to TPUSA's Professor Watch List, a project that exposes professors accused of discriminating against conservative students. Fulcher wrote that this practice is not aligned with ASB's purpose of fostering constructive communication. Again, they're afraid that their professors will be called out for their wokeism by this conservative group. The president also said the group's desire to affiliate with TPUSA Faith, which is the faith arm of TPUSA, violates the school's church and parachurch policy, which limits outside ministries from using campus resources. Now, let's pause right here. Point Loma Nazarene University is supposedly a Christian institution. And yet this church policy is being used to block an organization that promotes biblical values and patriotism. Meanwhile, the same campus proudly hosts clubs like Break, which focuses on gender equality and justice, and a Center for Justice and Reconciliation that emphasizes immigration and racial justice. In other words, woke causes are welcome, but faith-based conservatism, it's a threat. You better not let them on campus. They may catch on to what we're actually doing here. Imagine that, a Christian institution allowing these woke organizations on campus, and they won't let another Christian organization be on campus. I mean, let's just call it what it is, hypocrisy. If the university can sponsor clubs that advocate for social justice, for climate activism, and gender politics, it can certainly allow one group of students to discuss limited government, free markets, and individual freedom. Don't you think? But this is what's happening across America's universities. Selective tolerance, diversity of background. Check diversity of thought, not so much. When a Christian student says, I want to talk about my faith and my politics, administrators suddenly get nervous. And when those views align with the conservative movement or with President Trump's populist message, well, the gatekeepers of free expression suddenly rediscover their censorship button. Wow. Now, to her credit, the student leader, Ginger Frice, hasn't backed down. She says she was inspired by her grandfather, one of TPUSA's first donors back in 2012, to carry the mission forward. She told Fox, ultimately, I hope to create loving people with the boldness to advocate for the eternal goodness for others and equip conservative students with a heart for Christ. That's not a message of hate. That's not watch listing professors. That's simply just faith. That's trying to lead other students, your fellow students, to Christ. That's leadership. And you can bet Charlie Kirk, who always told young people to speak the truth even when it's hard, would be proud of her courage. Now, in response to the backlash, university spokesperson Laura Fleming said in a statement that the outcome should not be misunderstood as a departure from our Christian mission or a rejection of conservative perspectives. Well, what other way can you interpret that? Wouldn't you love to be able to sit down and talk with this lady, with this Laura Fleming? How else are they supposed to interpret this message? I mean, yes, that's all nice language, what she's saying, but actions speak louder than those words. You can't claim to champion truth and grace while silencing one side of the conversation, especially when that side is made up of students who simply want to celebrate their faith and their country. They want to be heard. It's just that simple. This story from San Diego, sadly, isn't isolated, though. It's a part of a growing pattern. Across the country, Christian universities are drifting away from their roots, adopting the same speech codes, diversity mandates, and woke ideology that dominate secular campuses. They'll host drag shows, but ban conservative speakers. They'll champion diversity, but suppress biblical worldviews. And in this case, Point Loma's administrators have made their stance clear. Justice is welcome, but Jesus mixed with conservatism simply cannot be tolerated. That's the tragedy of what's happening in higher education. Not just the loss of free speech, but the loss of moral courage as well. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.